It's time to play What Crap Did I Buy from eBay with your host, Retro Fun Tech.
Thank you. Welcome back to the channel. This is Retro Fun Tech. So today I wanted to show what crap I bought from eBay. Let's see if it's an okay buy or if it is indeed crap. Let's take a look at the contender. Here I have the Anbernic Arcade Mini 32-bit Retro Game Console Handheld. That was a big long thing to say. I was intrigued by this for a few reasons. It's a mini arcade with a joystick. The price is under $25 depending on where you get it from. And it claims that you can add your games with an SD card. Also, it's made by Anbernic, or so that's what the eBay listing said. And that company makes retro handhelds. So let's take a look at it. Unboxing. The box is kind of cute. Inside the device, a charging cable, no brick, a weird aux port plug, and the instructions. Now I actually make fun of the instructions, but don't throw this away. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's actually handy, and I will show this later in the video. I will mention that you can plug in the cord to a fast charging cable, and it works. It doesn't seem to actually charge fast, but it's still good to know. I really like the way that this is set up. It kind of feels like you're holding a retro arcade game in your hand. The buttons are decent, they don't bottom out, and I like the different colors. At the top are 3 black buttons that blend into the case: reset, select, and start. On the left side is a volume wheel. On the back is an SD card slot, the aux out, and the mini USB charging port. This port is super old. You might recognize it from several years ago if you had a BlackBerry phone or a Motorola Razr. On the bottom, there's a speaker, 6 rubber grips. Battery is pretty standard. It's an old cell phone battery. In fact, the fake Game Boy I reviewed not too long ago was using this battery. And there's a weird surprise underneath the battery. There's a 2018 stamp, if you can see it. So I'm wondering if that's why they used the mini USB cable. Now let's turn this on. So the menu is pretty bare bones. It's a little funny to me that there is a music, video, and an ebook section, as if someone was going to use this for anything other than games. Oh wait, apparently you're supposed to use this to help your children go to sleep. Gameplay. Now let's move on to the most important aspect, the gameplay. There are 500 preloaded games to choose from. It's actually about 520 if you count the doubles games. There seem to be a decent mix of titles. While the games are a blast from the past, I would appreciate a bit more variety in terms of titles, but we'll get back to that. Also in the games section, you have a doubles game, which is where the weird aux cord comes into play. If you have 2 of these devices, you can actually battle against the other person and play some of these doubles games, like Street Fighter. You just have to plug one of the cords into one device and the other into another device, and there you go. There is also a game section where the 500 games are. Most are Nintendo games, NES games. There are some Game Boy Advance and some Genesis mixed in here as well. So I mentioned earlier that I wasn't too bummed about the preloaded games because guess what? The SD card works. Yay! Remember how I said to keep your instruction booklet? It actually gives you somewhat of the instructions on there. You basically have to move your ROMs over to the card and you just create a folder with the word game, all lowercase. In that folder, you can throw the ROMs in 2 different ways, but I would recommend that you just throw all of them in the games folder. Otherwise, you'll have to go into the File Explorer and you will have to find the games that way. But if you do need some organization in your life, you can make folders and then you'll just access them through the File Explorer that I will show in a minute. Let me show you the 2 different ways that you can access it. You can go to the games list and then scroll down to the SD card and everything will be listed there. That is if you just have all the games randomly through the games folder. Now, if you have additional folders inside the game folder, you have to go through the File Explorer, and you click on these additional folders, and then you can go through there. Now, another thing that I will mention, as far as the extensions on the files, you can see the instruction booklet for that. It's your typical GBA is Game Boy Advance and NES is Nintendo. One thing I will mention is Sega Genesis or Mega Drive files, you will need to use the bin format of the ROM. Before you start converting and searching, let me show you a pro tip. All you have to do is take your existing ROM file and change the extension to .bin. This works on both .gen and the MD file extensions. Just make sure you make a copy of that ROM in your library so you still have the original file. Pros and cons. So the device is kind of neat. It's very gimmicky, but it does work. It might make a neat present for someone. Another great feature is that you can add your games. I can't tell you how excited I was when I got the game files to work. I know there is a tiny bit of tweaking with the Sega Genesis files, but hey, how super cool is it that you can turn a little device with only around 500 games to several thousand if you want to. The price. You can find this anywhere from $25 to $40+. Obviously, if you get it through Amazon, there is an upcharge, but you will get it quick and you have their easy return policy. The cons. The sound. The sound, it's not really that great. It's probably my biggest complaint of the device. I wish there wasn't so much crackling. Also, when you are in a menu screen and there's nothing playing, there's a loud electronic noise. It's super high pitch and maybe only my dogs and I can hear it, but it's there, and it's annoying at times. Even if you were to turn the volume down, you can still hear it. The screen. I wish the bezels weren't so large. I feel like they could have put a larger screen in here. Also, there is some noticeable screen tearing on many games. It's not so horrible that it's unplayable, but if you are sensitive to that or are someone who needs perfect pixels, then this might not be a device for you. The charging port. Now, this is something I don't like. On my device, it's super snug and it needs some force to get the cord unplugged. I mentioned it earlier in the video, but please be very careful with the charging port. This is an old style port that can break very easily. And this is also a weird thing, which made me think that this was an older device. My guess is that this is definitely, a few years old. You can't buy this directly from Anbernic. I tried looking for this device on Anbernic's website just to see if I can compare the prices, but I couldn't find anything on the mini arcade anywhere. That was super weird. And also, just a nitpick of mine, there's only certain systems that can work on here. No Atari, no Sega Master System, or any of the other arcade games besides Capcom 1 and 2. It would be nice, since this is in an arcade style, that maybe you could play all the arcade games. But for whatever reason, I can't play Centipede or Frogger, and that's a bummer. So my final thoughts are that I think it's kind of neat, and it's not crap. Yes, it's super gimmicky, but everything works for the most part on it. Also, being able to add your own games through an SD card is a major win in my book. That's something that I was hoping for in some of my previous What Crap Did I Buy series videos. None of those devices had the ability to add extra games. This does, and adds so much more functionality to the device. So if you don't mind the other imperfections such as some screen tearing and the speaker crackling at time to time, then you might like it. I wouldn't buy this from Amazon for the listed price of $40 though. If this really is older device from 2018, then it's not worth it at all. I did have some fun testing it. It gave me a tiny bit of arcade nostalgia just for a moment, and those are my thoughts, not yours. Thanks for watching. Stay awesome, everyone, and go play some games.